making the best of it and faking the rest of it. Taking time to know. Looking inside where the heavy stuff hides, hoping that your heart will show you the way, maybe brighten your day, take away some of the pain deep in the night when you lose sight and thinking it'll never rain, thinking it'll never rain, waiting on the winds to change, thinking it'll never rain, and the thunder's so far away, thinking it'll never rain, while the clouds all look the same, and the thunder's so far away, thinking it'll never rain. Living with all of it and forgiving part of it, still giving my heart away, keeping alive the love that survived, hoping maybe it will stay and show me the way, maybe brighten my day, take away some of this pain deep in the night when I lose sight, thinking it'll never rain, thinking it'll never rain, waiting on the winds to change, thinking it'll never rain, and the thunder's so far away, thinking it'll never rain, while the clouds all look the same, and the thunder's so far away, thinking it'll never rain, thinking it'll never rain, waiting on the winds to change, thinking it'll never rain, and the thunder's so far away, thinking it'll never rain, while the clouds all look the same, and the thunder screams my name, I'm thinking it'll never rain, thinking it'll never rain, I'm waiting on the winds to change, thinking it'll never rain, and the thunder's so far away, thinking it'll never rain, while the clouds all look the same, and the thunder screams my name, I'm thinking it'll never rain.
Una canción que es para ti. In a few minutes, we will begin the 2019 State of the City Address. Steve Adler.
Mayor Pro Tem, colleagues on council, city manager, and some pretty distinguished guests we have up here with us tonight. County Judge Sarah Eckhart is here, there. Commissioner Trevelyan, Superintendent Dr. Crook is with us. Thank you. Houston Tillotson President, Colette Pierce Burnett, thank you. The Consul General Gutierrez and Farrell, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Fellow Austinites, and with the weather, we had people checking in over the course of the day. We were suggesting to folks with the storm potentially coming, it's okay, it doesn't look like it's hitting now. We advised a lot of people just to watch this on live stream, and to those people I say welcome as well. You know, I'm reminded as we think about the state of the city of that Dickens quote, "It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom and the age of foolishness." So the state of our city, I think, gives meaning to this Dickens passage. We've frequently spoken of the tale of two cities in describing Austin. But today I'm going to use that passage in a different way to describe where we are. I think that Austin may be living in what folks will refer to in 50 years as a golden moment, a golden age, with so many things going right. We are truly in a best of times. One of the most important things I think that's going right is that our success puts us in a position to actually address in real ways the most significant challenges that we face: affordability, mobility, and equity. So Austin is a magical city because of our people and their strong grasp on our culture and our values. It's truly a special place because we are dedicated to using our economic strength, our moment to power an almost singular focus on equity in a way that I think is unparalleled among United States cities. Unless, of course, state government is successful in upending our success. And I believe that that threat is large and immediate, and today casts a looming shadow over our city and cities across Texas. In my 40 years in Austin, I don't think our city and Texas cities have ever been so aggressively under attack by the state. And in that regard, we are in a worst of times as well. So first, the best of times. I'm really proud to live in this city, and I hear that all the time from so many. I'm proud we're dedicated to doing something about our challenges. I'm proud that in Austin, we know that we have the capacity to meet those challenges and to succeed. Today is a golden moment because the efforts of so many that have come before us join with the work we have done recently, and with both we are truly positioned in ways never before presented to finally take grand and wondrous strides where action is most needed. You know, everybody supports change until things start changing. We need to be comfortable with change. Austin does change well. We need to change to protect what is special about the spirit and soul of this place. Change is often hard, sometimes it is scary, and it is always disconcerting. But we need to hold hands and step forward. We need to own that Austin does change well. I've personally seen Austin change a lot over those last 40 years. And even with all that change, the caring, creative, entrepreneurial, environmental, progressive, innovative core of Austin that I've always known is still strong, and so is the music. The city of Austin enjoys a robust economy with a lower unemployment rate than the state of Texas, and the 5th lowest unemployment rate among metropolitan areas nationally. Our employees earn more per hour than they did a year ago. And in 2018, Austinites earned more than $3 more per hour than the average for Texas as a whole. Austin's economy is succeeding for our workers, but it's also good for innovation. In 2018, 61% of all venture capital activity in the entire state of Texas happened in the Austin area. It is that sort of innovation that has developed homegrown startups and attracted the largest and most sophisticated organizations to locate or to expand here. Last year, we attracted major institutions like the Army Futures Command and major companies, including Apple and Google and Oracle, Amazon, Indeed, Charles Schwab, PIMCO, BAE, and General Motors have all announced expansions in our city. Companies like Zoho and Residio and Disco and others have located their headquarters here in the last year. And meanwhile, creative organizations like the publisher BMI have located offices here and will give artists and creatives in our community new career opportunities. Austin continues to be the safest big city in Texas and among the handful of safest cities in the country. Chief, thank you, and thank those that you command. And for the 3rd year in a row, U.S. News & World Report ranks Austin as the #1 city in the country. By the way, Texas ranks 36th in the list among the states, based on a very low rating having to do with opportunity. And while we're a young city, we have one of the fastest growing senior populations, and Austin is ranked 4th among cities in the country as a place for retirees. We're the best city for so many things, including being a top city to start a small business. We need to celebrate all that is going well in this city because it positions us to better be able to respond to our most serious challenges. So, your city council and community leaders are making progress. So, let's take a short trip outside of City Hall, and let's hear what they're working on, and let's hear the big questions that they're seeking to answer. Should be coming. We're trying something new.
Hi, I'm Austin Mayor Steve Adler. You know, we should head out and talk to some of the folks in this city that are doing really big things with an eye to the future. You know, I have a phone, we have a small crew. Let's go.
Paige Ellis, City Council member for District 8, which is Southwest Austin and home of the Greenbelt. A lot of people in my district are concerned about affordability because their housing prices are increasing due to lack of housing units available citywide. So what I want to know is how, as a city, are we going to build density where it's appropriate so that we can protect water quality features all over the city?
I'm Councilmember Kathy Tovo, and I represent City Council District 9. And ending homelessness is a high priority for my office as well as for the entire City Council. In this last year, we've taken some important strides to pass the action plan to end homelessness. We've increased our funding. We've increased our support for the Homelessness Outreach Street Team. And I'm excited in this next year to move forward with potentially building on city-owned land and working to make Austin a place where none of our neighbors are sleeping in the creeks or under the overpasses, but that every one of them has a safe and stable place to call home.
Hi, I'm Leslie Poole. I'm the council member for District 7. Back in December of 2015, the mayor and I went to Paris to attend the C40 Cities Climate Summit. Some important initiatives flowed from that conference. One was the mayor's signing of the C40 Cities Mayor's Pact, which for Austin meant pressing forward even more deliberatively on our city's climate initiatives. Keeping Austin sustainable, healthy, and green will help keep Austin affordable.
I'm Nora Leonatus Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Works Austin. We are a research, educational initiative, and advocacy organization for affordability in our community. We want to thank the mayor and the city council for all of their efforts in making sure that we keep affordability on the top of mind. And we want to ask the community, what can we do collectively as a community to make sure we put more affordable units on the ground for all kinds of people in all parts of town?
Hi, I'm Tamara Atkinson with Workforce Solutions. Workforce Solutions cares about affordability in Austin because we know that everyone in our community desires to be able to support their family through the dignity of work. And we know that local businesses want to source talent locally. We are so appreciative of Mayor Adler and City Council for all of their leadership and support and helping us grow our talent pipeline from within our community. The question I would have for our community is, how can Austin create clear pathways into the jobs that are growing our economy?
My name is Ann Howard. I'm the Executive Director of ECHO, the Ending Community Homelessness Coalition. Affordability is important to families to maintain stable housing, and affordability will help us prevent and end homelessness. I want to know if Austin will join us in ending homelessness for youth by 2020.
Hey, I'm Craig Kassar. I'm the Austin City Council member representing District 4, where we have more young families and more working class and young people and low-income people than anywhere else in the city. And I think we will be judged as council members and as leaders by how people in places like District 4 do. And I'm so proud to serve on a city council with this mayor where we're ready to take on bold solutions like our paid sick days ordinance or passing our affordable housing bond to tackle those affordability crises head on and make our city more equal. So the big question that is before us is whether we can get off on this track of becoming more and more expensive and exclusive and instead get onto a track of becoming the most radically inclusive city in this country.
So there are two ways that you make something more affordable. You either help make things cost less, or you help people earn more money so that they can spend more. So with respect to affordable housing, the whole community and your council, everybody, but with particular focused leadership from the Mayor Pro Tem and Council Members Kassar, Renteria, and Tovo. As a community, we've approved a $250 million affordable housing bond, which is the largest such investment in our history. We passed the Strategic Housing Blueprint, which calls for 135,000 new units over the next 10 years, with 60,000 affordable for the most economically challenged. We're moving forward to unlock affordability by making it easier and less expensive to build affordable housing supply. And after years of promising a strike fund to save existing workforce apartments before they gentrify, the Austin Housing Conservancy has truly launched, and it has now acquired its first 3 large apartment buildings serving 1,500 residents with an economic model that is unique in the world and costs taxpayers nothing. The council has a consensus to rewrite the Land Development Code, I believe, this year to help provide more affordable and missing middle housing. With respect to homelessness, the whole community and your council, again with focused leadership from Council Members Kitchen and Tovo, has adopted the Austin Action Plan to End Homelessness, which delineates 5 critical methods to effectively end homelessness, and for the first time has truly aligned the city and the county and the service providers. We've begun to implement, again with Travis County and with other entities in the region, a cutting-edge pay-for-success model that will allow the region to leverage private sector financing to help focus on those experiencing chronic homelessness and among the highest cost utilizers of our jails and our emergency rooms. We appreciate Councilmember Kitchen being with one of those governmental entities tonight, lobbying for their participation. In the last year, we successfully took half the homeless children in our city off the streets. And with the University of Texas Design Team presentation of what a convention center expansion might mean for downtown placemaking, I think we've taken a step closer to realizing the partnership between the hotel industry, the Downtown Alliance, and the city to realize what could be $5 to $10 million per year in dedicated funding to help with rescaling and rescoping the Arch and assisting with permanent supportive housing across the city, all as part of what I think Councilmember Tovo is proposing to be called a Palm School District. With respect to affordable child care, the whole community and your council, with particular focused leadership from the Mayor Pro Tem, the city is beginning to process to remove obstacles, enabling high-quality child care to be more universally available, and provided startup costs for pre-K classrooms, allowing school districts to leverage state funding. With respect to displacement, the whole community and your council, this one with everybody's leadership. We have a displacement plan to address our community's immediate needs. Our city staff, under our city manager, has developed an action plan from the over 300 recommendations on displacement that came from the Anti-Displacement Task Force, Uprooted, the People's Plan, the Mayor's Task Force on Institutional Racism, the Fair Housing Action Plan, and the Austin's Plan to End Homelessness. And implementation is already underway. We're also pursuing and soon be piloting a right to return, a right to remain policy that would provide additional opportunities for individuals with generational ties to neighborhoods that are experiencing rapid gentrification and displacement to remain in or return to those neighborhoods. With respect to affordability for creatives and musicians, the whole community and your council, with particular focused leadership under the Music Omnibus Resolution and from Councilmember Kitchen, we're beginning to allocate the $12 million in bond funding that the community passed to acquire and preserve creative spaces. We're increasing affordable housing units with some targeted for artists. We have funded as a city the Creative Space Assistance Program to help displaced creative organizations. We've successfully conducted the Red River Extended Hours Pilot, which increased venue revenues by extending club hours while calibrating their sound to be good neighbors. And it's going to be a model, I think, for the upcoming sound compatibility efforts. We're also working to help people in our community earn more. With County Judge Eckhart, we launched the Workforce Master Plan, and its adoption by both the city and by Travis County is now focused on removing 10,000 people in our community from poverty through training for middle-skill jobs. We're getting people the training that they need. We're making it easier by providing support services like child care and counseling, and we're doing much better regional coordination with everybody that's involved. But despite all that work on affordability, we're never going to be able to really tackle that issue unless we also address transportation and mobility. So let's hear from a few of my colleagues that are working on mobility.
Hi, this is Councilmember Jimmy Flanagan, representing District 6. You know, of all the issues that we face as a city, mobility is the #1 issue we talk about in far northwest Austin. In fact, it doesn't even matter which issue you start with. In 2 moves, you're talking about traffic. It's the thing we've got to find solutions for, and more importantly, we can't just do the thing we've always done. We've got to be innovative, we have to try creative ideas, and that's really the question for Austin as we move forward. How are we going to do this differently, and how are we going to do this in a way that helps the entire city?
Hi, my name's Ann Kitchen, and I'm the City Council member for District 5 in South Austin. And you know, one thing we see in South Austin and all over the city is a problem with traffic, a problem with what we call mobility, which all that means really is how can we get to where we need to go when we need to get there? And how can we have choices to do that? So that's the challenge for us. I really appreciate the work of my colleagues, the people on the Cap Metro board, and the mayor. I appreciate his leadership. We're all working together, and this is a community problem. It's all hands on deck. So can we count on you to work with us to make sure we solve this problem for our city?
With real focused leadership from the council members that are on Campo, council members Kitchen and Flanagan and Alter and Ellis, and the council members that serve on the board of Cap Metro, council members Renteria, the Mayor Pro Tem, council member Kitchen on Cap Metro. We're moving forward on mobility. We've adopted Austin's strategic mobility plan just last week that looks at mobility over the next 20, 30, 40 years in our city. You know, today, 74% of the people that are commuting to work in our city are doing it alone in their cars. Over the next 20, 25 years, when our population doubles and our infrastructure expands by only 15%, if we have that same percentage commuting alone in their cars, nobody's going to be moving at all during rush hour. Which means we have to give people choices, better choices, alternatives that are faster and safer and less expensive and easier so that folks have a good choice not to be driving alone. And to that end, that strategic plan presents a pathway from moving from 74% to 50% by the year 2039. We passed and are now implementing the 2016 bond. 2 years ago, we approved that $720 million bond package. We're moving forward with 100 projects already constructed to improve mobility, safety, and connectivity. It is on time, and it is on budget. We've already constructed intersections that are saving lives. We've planted over 60 sidewalk projects and safe routes to schools. We're leveraging over $200 million in state money to help with projects like removing all the lights off of Loop 360, but also to help with projects like Anderson Mill and Palmer Lane. Project Connect, I think, is probably the most exciting and transformative thing that's going to be happening in our city over the next 2 years. It's the vision for a complete regional system of reliable and frequent public transit with congestion-proof services that operate in dedicated pathways, free from other traffic. The communities should study this plan this year, make sure that it's right, and then demand an election in November of 2020, the same day as the next presidential election, so that we can finally achieve in this city a regional transit plan. So imagine a dedicated lane beginning way up north at Lamar at the city line, traveling all the way south through our city, over to Guadalupe, crossing the river and heading down Congress to the city line in the south. And from the airport up Riverside, then across the river, traveling north through the UT campus into ACC and Highland Mall, all on dedicated pathways. And with a goal not to lose any car lanes if we can, maybe doing things like tunneling under the drag so that we take cars off that road as it sits on West Campus, and providing transit priority on the other major corridors in our city. I also want to just touch on equity because Austin, I think, more than any other city in the country, is committed to looking at everything through an equity lens and doing everything we can to ensure that everyone in our city has an opportunity to succeed. So here are a few of my colleagues and community heroes who are asking questions in the pursuit of justice.
Good morning, Austin. This is Natasha Harper Madison, councilperson for District 1. District 1, for those of you who don't know, is on the east side of I-35. It's what we call the Eastern Crescent. Historically, District 1 has been underrepresented and underserved, and we want to fix that. I'm enjoying my time working with the mayor and council to address equity issues in the city of Austin. By that, I basically mean, can we level the playing field? Can we make Austin a place of economic growth and opportunity? Can we share the prosperity in our very prosperous city? Can all Austinites find themselves in a position to live their best lives in the best city in the country?
Hi, I'm Delia Garza, Mayor Pro Tem of Austin. I also represent District 2, which is Southeast Austin. It's an honor to represent such an amazing, hardworking, resilient district. But we have our challenges, just like the rest of Austin has our challenges. Families in Southeast Austin make about half of the median income as the rest of Austin. And so because of that, we see these challenges even more. And that is why we've concentrated on affordability issues, on affordable childcare, on efficient transit, and making sure that we can improve the quality of life for all Austinites.
I'm Laura Donnelly. I'm the founder of Latinitas. We empower all girls to innovate using media and technology. To us, equity is everything. 80% of our incoming kindergarten in Austin in our public schools is Latino. So when you're thinking of an Austin kid, you should be thinking of a Latino kid. And I know that the city council and the mayor thinks that too. They are showing up for us. And so, you know, Austin is #1 for startups to live here, for tech. Let's be #1 for diversity and inclusion.
My name is Allison Alter, and it's my honor and privilege to represent District 10 on the Austin Council and to work with my colleagues and the mayor on the issues important to us in Austin. The fact that we have a majority female council allows us to focus in on important issues of gender equity in a new way. I'm looking in particular at how we respond to sexual assault and how we create an environment so that survivors perceive healing and justice as they move through the system. What if in 20 years no one had to experience sexual assault, and for those few people who did, that they were able to come out of the system feeling like justice had been done?
Hi, I am Council Member Sabino Fiorenteria, and I represent District 3. We're walking right now through the middle of my district. It's called Chalmers Courts. These courts were built in the 1930s, and what we're doing now is building brand new projects on this side. These units here, we're gonna have 400 low-income workforce housing here. It's very exciting, but this is just the beginning. This is very important for our culture, our equity that we always talk about. This is how it begins, and this is just the beginning of big things that we're gonna be doing for Austin.
So race issues remain our most significant equity challenge, and we've begun to really address the institutional racism that exists in our community. There just is no justification for having a 10-year differential in life expectancy, depending on whether you live on the east side of town or the west side of town. I want to appreciate the work of Councilmember Harper Madison, who is already stepping in to provide leadership on equity. The city's equity office is implementing its equity tool, department by department, to make sure that we live up to our commitment. By June of this year, 1,500 leaders and connectors in our community will have completed racial bias and equity training Pursuant to the recommendation of the Mayor's Task Force on Institutional Racism and Systemic Inequities, chaired by President Burnett, we thank Leadership Austin for its work in this regard. We also remain a geographically segregated city. The next time you're in a restaurant, you should look around and see if you can find the diversity in our town. We need to find new opportunities for our community to gather across race and ethnicity and geography. And I'm excited that this year we're moving forward with a Major League Soccer team, because that will too bring us together in ways that we don't otherwise gather. And then there are other equity issues too. We have become a fast-track city on the path to ending HIV by 2030. That means 0 new AIDS cases, 0 new HIV infections, and 0 HIV deaths by the year 2030. Currently, we still experience 250 new cases of HIV every year, with men of color accounting for almost half of those cases. And this year, with the leadership of Councilmember Alter and the support of Chief Manley and District Attorney Moore, we're moving forward to make sure that sexual assault is reported, investigated, and prosecuted in our city. That means that victims will participate in the process because it won't victimize them again. Evidence will be processed, and law enforcement and prosecutors will get the support that they need to keep us safe. There is no equitable or sustainable future without addressing the threat to our environment, and Austin's fighting hard to mitigate climate change. Council members Poole and Ellis providing focused leadership on that. We're investing heavily in wind and solar. We've approved a 100-year strategic water plan, and we are a world leader on combating climate change. So rather than looking at the challenges we face as the inevitable outcome of our success, we should be looking at our success as giving us the tools to meet those challenges. We can, should, and must house homeless youth in our community, build more affordable housing, continue to march toward the climate change goals we set in Paris, exhaust every legal tool available to prevent displacement, raise all boats with job training, make available to working families access to high-quality child care, build the infrastructure and services necessary for people to move around our city with safe, quick, and affordable choices, ensure dignity and opportunity for the workers who build this city. And we've worked for years on these issues, but never before have we been so poised to act in big ways, all at the same time. We're about to take huge steps with a new land development code, new public transit system, a new convention center expansion perhaps, new regional plan for workforce training, thousands attending race training, with money now in hand, redoing our most trafficked mobility corridors, with money now in hand, $1 billion affordable housing investment when we leverage the bonds. With so much going right in our city, with the opportunity and moment to finally take the big steps to address our most serious challenges, why are we also in the worst of times? As I survey the obstacles and dangers that lay before us, that could disrupt the realization of all that this city could be, the largest and most immediate threat we face is a state government that would seek to change who we are, that would seek to snuff out the very culture that makes this place so special, that would seek to undermine the very values that lay at the heart of our success. It's almost as if the state has declared war against its cities, and we must be prepared to defend ourselves. Because, as it turns out, you don't have to make it all the way down to the border to witness a manufactured crisis. You would think that with Texas cities, especially Austin, doing so well, helping the Texas economy by being an incubator of innovation and an important economic engine that our state leaders and the legislature would be encouraging us to keep doing what we're doing. At the very least, not stepping in to change the community that we have chosen to live in. But no, our state legislature is now considering a 2.5 or a 3.5 property tax revenue cap proposal, House and Senate Bills 2. That limit what cities can raise in property taxes to fund city services. And it does this without providing any real property tax relief. I want to be clear that we all share the legislature's desire for true property tax reform, and property taxes are going up way too much. But property taxes can only be lowered by fixing the school finance system. 72% of the property tax increases that we have been feeling here in Austin don't come from cities or the county. It comes from the school property tax. Our cities are only a small fraction of everyone's tax bill and an even smaller portion of the property tax increases we have been paying. And since cities are not the problem, by limiting city property taxes with HB 2 and Senate Bill 2, they provide no real relief. What these bills do, however, is they make it impossible for cities and counties to maintain even existing services. If we keep our current budget, the one that was passed last year, and we don't add a single new person or a single new program not already inherent in that budget, increases for inflation, normal cost drivers, just those, can't be covered in future years. We can't cover increases in health coverage for our employees, standard wage increases, inflation, or even increasing rents where the city leases offices. A 2.5% cap would cause an annual budget deficit of $51.7 million in 3 years. At a 3.5% cap, our deficit would be in excess of $35 million in 3 years. Again, that's 51.7 and over $35 million. People are not telling you the truth when they tell you that these bills, these House and Senate bills, would not require budget cuts to existing budgets. And for what? Incredibly, because the justification I keep hearing is that these proposals will provide tax relief. Know that these bills result in tax savings for the typical Austin homeowner of only $2.70 a month at a 2.5% cap, and only $1.80 a month at the 3.5% property cap. You know, we do get new money for new growth, but that revenue will barely pay for the growth itself. Make no mistake about it, we will be needing to cut our budget this year. And how and where are we going to cut over $50 million or over $35 million? The reality is that we spend 2/3 of our budget for public safety, and it will be impossible to make the cuts that could be required by House Bill 2 and Senate Bill 2 without impacting public safety. All parts of our budget are going to have to sustain cuts. I don't know what they'll be, and we'll go through a process to identify it, but just so that you can see the kinds of things that this council would have to consider if these proposals happen. You know, we could save about $12 million a year if we stop paying the payments that we agreed to pay to the companies that come to our city and create new jobs. They've created the jobs. They've done what they said they were going to do. But our commitment, pursuant to the Constitution, is conditional year to year. Now, in past years, I have fought hard to make sure that the city makes good on the promises that it has made. I have argued that we shouldn't change the rules in the middle of the game. I still feel that way. But some will say that the state, with Senate Bill 2 and House Bill 2, is the one that's changing the rules. And there will be calls for cutting this expenditure before we cut spending for affordable housing in the city. We could cut about $3 million out of our existing budget if we wanted to stop devoting property taxes from formerly state-owned buildings to affordable housing. The manager committed to adding 30 more police officers a year to enable us to staff more community policing. But that's a new program, and it would cost us about $13 million a year to implement that program. If these caps get passed, we're going to have real difficulty discussing any new programs because we're going to be locked into finding where we cut to find $35 or $50 million. We have Austinites that are paying more for their home insurance because of slower fire response times. To address this, we have planned to build 5 new fire stations, which are long overdue and something we must do. But I don't know how we afford to staff those 5 fire stations with new firefighters, with the constraints imposed by House Bill 2 and Senate Bill 2 if they pass in the present form. State leaders often talk proudly about the people and companies moving to Austin. Everyone from technology giants to music publishers to the U.S. Army wants to be in this city. They want to be here because of what we do with health care and crime rates and commute times and how our residents fare physically, socially, and financially in our city. We are the best American city to live in, not in spite of our investments in public health and public safety and libraries and parks. We are the best place to live in America because of them. We put our money where our values are, and the result is one of the safest, most prosperous cities in the state, in the country, and in the world. If the legislature insists on imposing property caps, it should provide exemptions for public safety, for roads, and for other basic priorities that are shared by cities and states. House Bill 2 and Senate Bill 2 have no such exemptions or exclusions. The Senate just voted down amendments that would have added them, as the House committee did when it was considering House Bill 2. To negate the damage that caps cause, the proposals would require Texans to head to the poll year after year, every year, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, just to provide public safety, increases in health insurance, and other basic needs. Such annual elections will cost millions and create tremendous uncertainty. They undermine our credit rating by making it impossible to execute long-term contracts. Spending decisions are best made by the folks that are closest to the consequences. As local officials, we know firsthand where people experiencing homelessness are gathering, which roads need repair, where new fire stations and parks are needed, and which police units are understaffed. HB 2 and Senate Bill 2 would cost us millions and save us pennies. The proposed cap artificially and unnecessarily creates a crisis, especially without exemptions for public safety and other necessities. I hope that the governor and the speaker, and lieutenant governor and the legislature will change or modify this direction. The truth is, it is hard to understand why there is such an assault on cities that are doing their best to be strong components of the state. I think it's politics, untethered from sound public policy. Shouldn't we be concerned when our governor drives up to Waco and gives a speech and says, and I'm quoting, "I got to tell you, it's great to be out of the People's Republic of Austin. Once you cross the Travis County line, it starts smelling different. And you know what that fragrance is? Freedom. It's the smell of freedom that does not exist in Austin, Texas. It's the end of that quote. Well, that is not true, sir. In Austin, we value freedom to express ourselves, to be free from crime, to find work, to be safe, to take care of our neighbors, to decide what is best for our community. Freedom is what Austin is all about. Our lieutenant governor, a little over a year ago, said, and I quote, "Our cities are still controlled by Democrats. And where do we have all our problems in America? Not at the state level, run by Republicans, but in our cities that are most controlled by Democrat mayors and Democrat city council men and women. That's where you see liberal policies. That's where you see high taxes. That's where you see street crime." That's not true, sir. Austin is the safest big city in Texas and among the safest in the entire country. 72% of the increase in property taxes we pay in Austin is not because of cities, but because of state school finance and the resulting school tax increases. I don't understand why you want to cap property tax revenue at 2.5%, while your Senate just passed a state budget proposal with a 7% increase. Speaker Bonin was frustrated last session when cities and counties wouldn't agree to support budget caps they felt would do harm and not provide any real property tax relief. Mr. Speaker, for 2 months this session, 25 to 30 mayors convened every week with most of the largest cities represented to be responsive to the questions from the House committee. We spent hours and hours trying to clarify alternatives. And at this point in the process, our input has been ignored. It looks like the legislature this session will stop cities from being able to collect part of the fees we collect from cable companies and have been collecting for years, just because the companies asked. It's going to cost our city about $6 million. It's going to cost Houston up to $27 million. And I don't understand why there would be such a giveaway. It looks like the legislature this session may end Austin's ability to get parental and sick leave for our workers and make us suffer the resulting health and community impacts. Take away our fair chance hiring practices intended to ensure that everyone in our city has a better chance to find a job. Take away our ordinances mandating water breaks for construction workers. And even take away our ordinance that prohibits discrimination based on protected classes, such as for the LGBTQ community. Not to mention that the legislature is also considering ending our ordinances on short-term rentals, as well as our ability to enforce the SOS ordinance in much of the land in the southwest part of our city. In what seems to me to be just an extreme act of hypocrisy, the Senate just passed a bill that would stop cities from lobbying the state the same way that our state lobbies the federal government in Washington, D.C. Even if you don't like what we have to say, you shouldn't try to silence our voice. The state has been nibbling for a long time at stopping local control at the truly local level. But this year, with the property tax cap, it's become a much more significant assault. The state may have most all the power, but there's an even greater power each of us have individually. As the cities decide their budgets in September of 2020 to comply with a property tax cap that looks like it might pass, we're all going to be looking to see if there really are budget cuts that are being made And we will all be really focused to see if there is real property tax relief being realized. Because at the end of the day, it's the voters that ultimately have all the power, and they get to decide. We continue to hope that the state leadership and the legislature will provide real protections for public safety, for economic development, for roads and other priorities that cities share with the state as part of the final version of HB 2 and Senate Bill 2. And we will stay at the table to try. At the very least, we would ask that the legislature give voters the option of setting their own local tax cap with an election, once and for all. Not a yearly ballot that hurts our credit rating and prevents us from entering into long-term contracts, but an up or down vote so that each city can decide for itself. I think everybody should know that our senators and our House delegation are working hard, and we're thankful, especially to Senator Kirk Watson and Representatives Eddie Rodriguez and Cheryl Cole, who are on the House Ways and Means Committee, because they're working really hard on our behalf. We live today in the best of times and in the worst of times. Austin is doing well, and we are so poised to do such great and big things. And it breaks my heart that the largest looming risk we face is our own state government. It is a self-imposed and manufactured threat. Know that in this magical city, we will always be Austin, a city that is welcoming and kind and supportive, creative and entrepreneurial, innovative, cutting edge and weird. Sometimes that will take more work than at other times. We have the tools, and most importantly, we have the people who have self-selected to live in a city with our values and our culture. Ultimately, we will prevail because we will remain being true to being Austin. Thank you.
Certain designs to preserve the tree on site. And then finally, in 2013, Jeff Jack said, it is not a question of the heritage tree preventing a reasonable use of property and the development allowed by the zoning, but a question of how much that development will be reduced if the heritage tree was preserved. That's the issue about heritage tree ordinance, requiring that you look into alternative designs. This was the first case for Bowie in 2012 or 11, right after the heritage tree was approved. It's 2012. So it was a similar case. It was 100% density desired. It was a tower. The tree was there. The tree was in good health. But did it prevent a reasonable use of property? The developer had to come back with an alternative design. When he showed the design to the Planning Commission, they also said, well, we're going to lose this much money, this many units, this much, this is what the impact is. Based on that, the Planning Commission denied the variance. But that didn't mean that the project was stopped. The alternative was to transplant the tree, and the tree was transplanted. Here you can see it on the upper left corner. It's doing fine. This picture is from 2015, but the tree is still doing fine. There's a path that goes to it so the community can enjoy it. Transplanting is a good alternative for trees that are transplantable. They only require care for 5 years. Simple care like water, compost, mulch. Be careful that it doesn't get full of bugs, and arborists check them every so often. Here you see pictures of all the trees that have been transplanted. I'm sure you have seen cases like this. And of course, UT transplants a whole lot of trees. Now, I wanted to talk about the case where the heritage tree variance was approved, denied, and then the trees were removed. This was in 2015. It was the 504 East 8th Street. There were 2 trees, a 32-inch and a 30.25. It was the lack of the applicant's due diligence that forced the Planning Commission to approve the heritage tree variance for the 32-inch tree. The applicant did not own the land. There were no site plans. The applicant did not meet the heritage tree conditions. They did not show that they considered alternative designs to preserve the tree. The smaller tree was in poor condition, roots were exposed. The larger tree, the 32-inch live oak, the applicant presented a certified arborist report that stated that the tree was in fair condition at one date, and then not more than a few days later, 2 weeks, they changed the report to poor condition. Both reports were submitted to the Environmental Commission. The city staff recommended the variance for both trees based on poor condition, prevents a use of property. We disagreed, the Heritage Tree Foundation, and we presented an independent certified arborist report that said that the 32-inch live oak was in good condition and more testing was needed. It's not enough to just look at the tree or do one test. You have to do a thorough test. So they recommended a root excavation of more resistant grafts. The 32-inch showed to be transplantable, but you needed to confirm it with a root excavation. And the main thing when you want to transplant a tree is you have to have a relocation site. Well, we found a relocation site very close by that was owned by the city. The Environmental Commission denied both variants based on not meeting the requirements from the Heritage Tree Ordinance because there were no designs presenting no alternatives, and the applicant had not applied for any other variances. But the Planning Commission approved the variance for both, one because it was in poor health, and the other because the applicant kept on pushing. I was there. I was the one defending the tree. They told the applicant, will you go back and look at this tree, do further analysis? When you have the further analysis, like they're recommending a root excavation and so on, figure out if it's transplantable, then come back. The applicant said no, because then it will take a long time to get back in the queue. They told him no, there will not be any time. You will come back, there will be no queue. He said, no, you need to give me the variances now, or I will not build, and then you're going to lose all that money. You know how it goes. So the Planning Commission gave them the variance with a condition that they look into transplanting the tree, and to make sure that there was no cheating, that the applicant didn't just try, they said if the tree is not transplantable, there should be a mitigation of 500%. You know, it's very high, but that was in order to make sure that the applicant will try to transplant the tree. Okay? Unfortunately, the warning was the mitigation shall be 500% if under any circumstance the transplanting is not completed. The applicant went back to the tree with another arborist, I suppose. It was a simple removal. I looked at the tree with my arborist. They went and looked at the tree with some arborists. There were a lot of branches right in front obscuring the trunk. All they had to do was remove that, and they saw a large cavity. They continued doing a root excavation, and they showed the tree was not transplantable. If they would have done all that work before they came to the Planning Commission, it would have been shown that the tree was in poor shape, not transplantable, and they would have gotten the variance. But because they insisted on having the variance that day without having all the work done, they had to pay 500% mitigation because of the wording. The transplanting was not completed, even though the tree was in poor shape, because those were the conditions from the Planning Commission. They said, you want to have the variances today, you will have 500% mitigation no matter what happens if the transplanting is not completed. So basically it was the applicant's responsibility to do a proper tree assessment and abide by the Heritage Tree Ordinance, what we call due diligence. He didn't do it, he ended up paying 500%. Those were the conditions he accepted. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it on citizen communication.
Okay, we're going to go to item 5. We have A and B. We have a environmental officer that's going to come forward to give us, thank you, give us some information.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Harrington, Environmental Officer. Beginning with 5A, I'd like to give you an update on the outcome for the amendment to our agreement with Austin Independent School District regarding the redevelopment of Bowie High School. If you recall, on a 9-0 vote, the Environmental Commission on March 6th did concur with staff recommendation to modify Bowie High School to transfer, or modify the Bowie High School agreement to transfer impervious cover from 2 additional schools